I got no voice. Oh, no.
Oh, yeah.
That's a horrible sign for your 22nd ranked Toronto Blue Jays. The Toronto Blue Jays. Let's get into what they did last year before a big year this year for Vladito and the whole country. The Toronto Blue Jays are DirecTV Rewind, ready to transform your baseball watching experience. Head to directv.com to learn more. Last year, they finished 74 and 88. That was last in the American League East. They had some offensive profile. They were 13th in on base percentage, but 23 in runs, 26th in homers, 27th in steals. That doesn't feel right. The rotation, middle upper class, 14th in ERA, 12th in WHIP. The bullpen was not. Almost dead last. 29th in ERA, worst in homers allowed. They dropped 12 spots in our TPP rankings from last year, Coach Trev. Vladito is going to be one of the biggest stories around baseball. Who'd they bring in to help keep him?
They brought a lot of people in, Jake. I'm looking and I'm liking it, who they added. Obviously, we'll start off with our guy, Anthony Santander. He signed a 5-year, $92.5 million contract. What's in your basement? Has he started his basement yet? We're not sure. He hits homers. That's what he does. They needed a left-handed bat, Jake, so they went out and got one. There is an opt-out after the third year, but the club has the ability to override that by picking up a club option for 2030. So it could actually become a $110 million deal over 6 years. They needed this guy. They went out and got the guy. I'm very happy for this move. Also, you just talked about the bullpen. They needed some work in the bullpen, especially at the real back end of games. Jeff Hoffman comes in, originally signed by the Blue Jays, with the Phillies, had some really good years there. 3 years, $33 million last year with Philly, 66 and a third innings pitched, 2.17 ERA with 89 Ks. Speaking of pitchers, Max Scherzer comes north of the border at 1 year, 15 and a half. Had a 3.9 in 9 games started with Texas last year. He's a dog. He's not like the rest of those old pitchers. He's different.
Yeah.
He really is. He thinks differently. His attitude's different. I'm excited to see kind of what edge he brings up there to Toronto, because I think they needed that. Yimi Garcia also signed another reliever, 2 years, $15 million. Reliever Josh Walker with the Mets last year, 1 year league minimum, $760. They traded for some people as well, Jake. Andres Gimenez will be the new second baseman for Toronto. They got him and Nick Sandlin in a trade with the Cleveland Guardians, where they sent Spencer Horwitz and Nick Mitchell over there. Miles Straw also came from Cleveland. So they brought a lot of people over via free agency, via trade. They also signed Amir Garrett, Christian Betancourt, Dick Lovelady's there, Eric Lauer, all on minor league deals. So they brought a lot of people in. They needed an infusion of talent, and I think they did it. But they did lose some people, Jake.
Jordan Romano is gone, who looked like kind of the signature closer, Canadian himself for the Blue Jays, but he had a brutal year last year, some injury and performance. So
he's with the Phillies, right?
Him and Hoffman trading places, movie reference. Spencer Horwitz, just talked about him. He ended up in Pittsburgh, gave them a couple good games last year. And then it's a lot of grab bag of arms. Genesis Cabrera. I'm thinking Yarbies, Ryan Yarborough, our guy, Dylan Tate. I think the parts in easily beat the parts out. And Trev, I think the top of the lineup especially, comeback player of the year, contract year, what's the whole lineup look like?
There's some interesting pieces here because there's nice names here. The production has not matched the names as of late. So I don't know what that means. Are there a bunch of bounce back years coming? We will see. Speaking of a guy that really needs to bounce back or find it again, is George Springer out there in right field. We know Vladdy will be at first base for them in the last year of his deal. Santander comes in. He'll be right there in the thick of that lineup. Bo Bichette, probably even more so than Vladdy for this year. is probably the biggest, like, what are you going to do for us name on this roster. He's in his walk year as well. Injury marred, bad year last year. He has to be better this year for the Blue Jays if they want to be in contention. Will Wagner, is he a junior? Because Bill
Yeah.
Wagner, Will
I don't know
Wagner,
about Junior.
isn't that the same thing? Both Williams? I don't know. He'll be there. Alejandro Kirk, your doppelganger, will be behind the plate. Andres Jimenez, we talked about him at second base. Ernie Clement at third base. And Nathan Lucas in center field. On the bench, my guy, shout out Tyler Heineman. Love you, buddy. Leo Jimenez, Davis Schneider, and Miles Straw. Also, Dalton Varshaw's there. He's going to miss the beginning of the season. He had shoulder surgery. A couple guys to watch: Addison Barger, Jonathan Clase, Loperfido, Elvis Martinez, and Michael Stefanik. These are all guys who will, most likely contribute at some point during this year. So that's the lineup. That's the depth pieces. Jake, talk about the rotation in the bullpen.
Trev, when I see this rotation, it brings me to an odd spot because, spring training, hope springs eternal. I picture all of these guys' best potential seasons. And when I see Kevin Gossman, Jose Barrios, Chris Bassett, Max Scherzer, and Bowden Francis, okay. Like, Bowden Francis, the way he finished last year, all of those other guys, what Scherzer's going to provide just to the dugout day in, day out. Alek Manoah is going to probably miss all this year. Tommy John. Ricky Tiedemann was supposed to be next for them. Also TJ guy. So you won't see them, but you might see Yariel Rodriguez be a swingman. Jake Bloss, who a lot of people were surprised they got in that trade. Eric Lauer twirling the pill. And then in the bullpen, Jeff Hoffman hopefully stabilizing the back end, the first round pick coming back. That could be a really fun story. Chad Green, hopefully fully healthy and back. Yimi Garcia, Swanson, Sandlin, Brendan Little, Nance. And then, you'll see some guys riding the bus. Hopefully my guy Amir Garrett could make the team or something. Like to see another lefty. From what I see there, it's not the 29th ERA bullpen that they were last year. So you'd like to think there's some fixes coming in there. So Trev, with all of that, I guess, what are you expecting to hear yourself say about the Blue Jays in this team profile and projection?
My preconceived notion, you're asking. First of all, I look at that rotation. I mean, is this 2016? 2016, this rotation slaps. These are guys that I all faced. I swear I probably faced all of these guys besides Barrios in 2016. They're still in the game, so kind of snaps for these guys because these are it's a true
not Bowden Francis. Okay,
not Bowden Francis. This is a true veteran staff right here.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not talking shit. I'm just saying it's kind of crazy to think about that. My preconceived notions of the Toronto Blue Jays in 2025. I think it's the year of. It's a make it or break it year, I guess, for them. They have to decide what to do with Vladdy. Can they keep him around? We're recording this on February 17th. He's been posting clocks on his Instagram stories saying the time to negotiate an extension is going to be done at spring training. I think today was the day that it's done, and we have not heard any news yet. That can also change from time to time. There's the clock. And I don't know, maybe that just means it's time to work out. Maybe did we come up with that theory? Because that seems to me like time to get work in.
Sure.
I'm not so sure.
Yeah.
So yes, okay. Preconceived notions. We need everybody to have a bounce back year. It's the bounce back Blue Jays. If that's the case, then there's a chance this team can compete for a wild card spot. But there's got to be a lot of positive regression, and Vladdy's got to be the guy that he was last year.
Yeah, I guess my preconceived notions are it's a really tough division. There should be a couple bounce back candidates. And the other thing is, this season can dictate, I think, a significant player's future. I think if they fight this year, if they find the 87 wins and make the wild card, I think they will offer Vladdy the most in free agency, and I think Vladdy will resign. I think he's He looks at Toronto as equal with other places. And okay, you have your cornerstone piece for the next decade. If not, I think the whole franchise gets reworked and we look back and this sounds rude and I'm a Yankees guy, but it turns into a Jolly Olive video of Bichette, Guerrero, Biggio. They invested in a pitching staff. They, going back to Lourdes Gurriel and Teoscar, like this team was prime. We were getting ready for the movie. And this is the last chance for the movie to hook us, man. And here's what I will say. Let's start spinning it up right. I think the movie has hope. I don't know if it's I see dead people type thing, Shyamalan, and now I'm bringing Drake into this a little bit with Toronto. But Trev, like compared to the teams we've talked about previous, I think this talent is on a totally different level. I think this team is here because of their division.
Okay, I can see that. Now, I will say, I think the Blue Jays front office has always kind of went out and tried their best, brought guys in, made trades. Like I don't think the previous teams that we've profiled here, there's a lot of teams that just they are not doing it through free agency. They're not going out and spending money. I don't think that's been the problem in Toronto. I think they've put up money. I think they've tried to bring in big free agents. Shout out Robert Herjavec, my guy.
Right.
They've tried, and like you said, they've put together a roster that on paper you're like, oh, okay, but there just hasn't been, man. And I don't really know what that means. Does that mean the coaching hasn't been there, the leadership hasn't been there? I think maybe I'm right around there when I say there hasn't been somebody there that's really pushed these guys day in and day out. Don't want to make this a Dodgers thing, but I just saw Dave Roberts talking to the Dodgers clubhouse, and then Freddie Freeman afterwards talking to the Dodgers clubhouse. And what he said was, you should be more mentally tired when you leave here than physically exhausted. You have to give it your all every single day. And Freddie echoed that sentiment.
Do you believe in that for spring training?
I don't think they're talking about spring training. I think they're talking about during the year. Like,
gotcha.
Did you give everything in the mundane bullshit that you have to do to be a good baseball player?
Gotcha.
Your routine, sticking to it through hard times and especially good times. Everyone's in their routine when you're doing bad. But when things are good, you're like, I don't need to do this anymore. So I has there been a lack of leadership? I'm not in the clubhouse. It's from the outside looking in, it kind of looks that way. If there's one thing I'm sure of, and I'm like putting my stamp on this. Boom. Where's my wax? Drip the wax, seal it. Yeah, I need one of those. That'd be sick.
Yeah.
What are those even called?
Wax
letter
sealers? Letterheads? I have no clue.
Not letterheads, but Bo Bichette will bounce back. I think Bo Bichette, I said it before, I love Andre Jimenez, working with him in the middle infield. And then I just think last year was like a fluke offensively for him. Obviously dealing with injuries. He was horrible against the fastball, which is just haven't seen that. He's not old enough where that should be a problem yet. 21, 22, 23, the guy was top 16 in AL MVP voting. Never had a season under 290 average. Like, this guy's an 800 OPS guy. One bad season. I think this guy bounces back in a massive way. The problem is they need more than that, Jake. Like, Dalton Varsho has to come back. He was the worst qualified hitter against right-handed pitchers last year.
Right.
Like, they need about, like, Andres Jimenez needs to be better offensively. Like, they need 3 or 4 guys in that lineup to, like, bounce back. And Vladdy has to be the guy still. And then, Coach, we're talking about wild card territory.
So I agree, and for whatever we're expecting from the Toronto Blue Jays, you're right. Like, if they, we've talked about the Red Sox making a jump, and the AL is it's open that if Toronto wants to be taken seriously, then yes, they need They need Will Wagner or like you said, Varsho. Like someone has to really
Say
click.
Alan Roden's name.
Say his name. Um, but okay, this team. Do they have an MVP type guy, Vladdy? Boom.
Yes.
Do they have a dude that can't run at that level, but can run? Bo Bichette, man, and he has to bounce back. And you're right. Like I don't know what degree, but it's not going to be last year. He
He
got the
will
haircut.
bounce back. I put my stamp on it,
You put
bro.
your stamp on it. Okay. George Springer, I'm worried about. Let's see what goes on with George. He had 2 good months last year. Everything else was tough. I love Santander, bro. He's not going to get on base, but he's going to hit you homers. He's staying in the same division. He's a switch hitter. How long have they needed the lefty to split up that lineup? It's like 5 years. I think Santander's that guy. In Toronto, pretty good place to hit, Trev. So, okay, if Bo's hitting, if Vlad is that guy, Santander's himself, we're already a step up. That what I like about Toronto is, say Jimenez doesn't hit, say Kirk doesn't really hit.
He should. He won the freaking Silver Slugger 2 years ago. Let's go, Kirk.
They both can. Jimenez league average would be the goal. Kirk can hit, we think. He's still young. Even if they don't, these guys are still going to rack up war. Like, I think that's the looking at this roster compared to others. Like, Jimenez's bad season is going to be a 4 WAR player, and his defense is going to be felt. If he can hit the ball on that turf and get a couple extra hits, you're looking at like a 5 WAR, 6 WAR player. He's done that in this league before. That, yes, they're going to need someone to really help with the offensive load. And maybe that's Kirk, maybe that's Wagner, maybe that's something else I'm missing. But I do like that even if our show's out there, you're going to get world-class defense. Now, you can't be the worst hitter against, what was it, righties or fastballs? Can't have that. But I like that. I guess we're talking floors when we do this. I think the floor for the Blue Jays offense and defense is high.
Okay. I don't mind that. That brings us to the pitching, who I think that's going to be interesting. I think there's a lot of like, at this point in their career, again, these guys have been around for a long
Right.
time. They're veteran. It's a veteran staff. I think most of these guys are like 3 starters. So you have
Right.
a stable full of number 3s there. When that happens, I actually don't mind that from my starters. Like if I just have, guys that are going to give me a chance to win every night, I like that. You got to have a lockdown bullpen though. Now,
Right.
have they found that? They obviously brought in some guys last year that was not the strong suit for them. So I think a lot of this season will fall on, yes, the bounce back of the offense and specifically 3 or 4 players in that lineup. But I think it's going to fall heavily on what do the new bullpen guys do for the back end of the games.
And I guess that's where my optimism is starting to come from. That, hey, Jeff Hoffman, let's say the breakout was real and it was one of the best stories last year. Let's say and hope that continues. I see a lot of other names I'm familiar with back there that on a given year, Chad Green, Garcia, Swanson, Sandlin, they should not be the 29th ERA bullpen next year. They just should not. So I'm seeing optimism with Bichette. I'm seeing Anthony Santander brought in. I'm seeing Andres Jimenez brought in. And I'm seeing a bullpen that can only literally go up. So I guess that's where I'm a little more excited for this Toronto Blue Jays team than I've expected. But I think this is the real conversation. It's where does it fall for the division, man? Because they could be last again, and that wouldn't be surprising. So do you have enough juice to take out the Rays, the Sox, Orioles, and Yanks? Man, those are, at least 2 of those teams should be class teams in the American League this year. That's the concern, and I don't know. It's like you said with the 3 starter thing, like that can be beautiful or that could be awful.
Yeah. If the 3 starters turn into 4 starters. Yeah, I understand that. I don't know if my preconceived notion has changed a ton because mainly I don't remember what I said.
Hmm.
Um, I guess the last thing we have to talk about before we get to the DraftKings over under would be, what do you think happens with Vladdy and Bo Bichette? I mean, that's the biggest storyline here, because it's not only them. It's like a lot of those pitchers we're talking about, they're free agents after
Yes.
next season. So like this whole team is kind of, um, I said 2016 pitchers would slap. I don't know what Robbie's trying to tell me right now. This whole team is going to, one way or the other, it's going to look completely different over the next couple of years. So where do you see this shaking out with both Vlad and Bo? I guess I'll start, so I'll give you some time to think about it. I think both end up leaving in free agency, or at least testing it. If Vlad ends up coming back because they offer him the most money, I could see that. I don't think Bo Bichette is long for Toronto. But I do see them hanging on to both of them throughout the entire year, unless something goes horribly wrong and they're just completely out of it around the deadline. I think they end up just riding it out, trying to make the playoffs again, and then offering the qualifying offer and receiving some compensation picks. That's how I see it working out. I don't see them trading them unless, again, something horribly goes wrong.
No, okay, Blue Jay fans, this is going to feel good and bad. The Angels with Ohtani. The Angels with Ohtani were in it. And they were like, they were up against it. It was the hot topic in baseball. Should they trade him? They traded, I think it was like a week before the deadline, and they added Giolito, and they're like, let's do this. We're around it, and we have Shohei Ohtani, and our franchise has been in a tight spot. Let's do it. Things started going south. They ended up doing the waiver wire thing. It was ugly. It is what it is. I think the Blue Jays, with the expanded wildcard format, are going to be around it. And I think to try to keep Vlad around, I mean, if you trade away everyone and then you come to the table with the best offer, I haven't seen that work out for Toronto a lot. If you have things,
it's worked out before in teams' favor.
For re-signing Vladimir Guerrero.
Well, the Yankees did it with what? Chapman, right?
Right, but that's a little different. I mean, there's only so many teams that get involved for relievers at that price. Like,
okay,
I have it as I don't know. Whatever teams are going to be in for Vladdy are going to be in for $500 million, and it's
are
where
you
you
calling for? I mean, obviously, in hindsight, the Angels should have traded Shohei and recouped and restocked their farm system. Even though I thought at the time they made the right move, because you're giving your fan base something, dude. You're giving them a chance. I don't know if Toronto is in the same category as Anaheim. Like, they've made the playoffs. They haven't won a playoff game since 2016, I believe it is. Or is it a series or a game? Not sure. But they've been trying. Like, they've been doing things. So I don't know if they necessarily like owe it, if they're out of it, to keep Vladdy there. I don't know if they owe it to the fans. I feel like they have done a pretty dang good job going out and getting guys, or at least attempting to. So now I'm rethinking. I don't know, like, depending on where they're at. I mean, it obviously makes a huge difference. I see them being in it, so I see them keeping these guys. But to say that at the trade deadline, Jake, they're 5 games back of a wild card,
right?
And like a couple teams ahead of them, I think you got to pull the trigger and maybe do it then.
Five games back is really hard to be. Like, Trev, think about what we've talked about with the AL. Like, do you love anyone out west? The Central, there's a lot of that. I don't know. I think the Blue Jays are going to be around it. And when you brought in Andres Jimenez and that contract starts to get kind of crazy, and you signed Santander, and you have all those old dogs in the rotation that you grounded out to short against, like, I think they're going to be enough around it at the deadline that they also might be a pre-deadline team. Like, if there's something that becomes available, I
like
think
that.
you have an alternate goal of trying to keep Vladdy around, that if the season goes haywire, you absolutely have to. It's really hard for the season to go that haywire that I think they're going to add at the deadline. And there might be a part to it. Like the Angels regret trading Shohei. You and me were on the same page there. Keep them and let's go. Like this franchise has had nothing. You're right. The Angels and Blue Jays shouldn't be compared that way. But also, not having won a playoff game since 2016, if we're around 500, let's go. Like, let's find out. Let's make the dance. Like, let's give it to Max Scherzer in a postseason game just to find out. Maybe Bowden Francis is a dude. I don't know.
What's their okay? Let me throw this out there at you, just really catch you off guard here. What's their trade deadline move? What do they need most?
I'm gonna assume like any team, they're probably gonna need pitching.
Reliever help. I feel like they kind of addressed that. Starters are very difficult to acquire at the deadline.
It's tough because every team needs pitching by the deadline. That's a wild card. I guess for me, if I'm looking at their team, it's a bona fide bat. Like I don't think it has to be a crazy one, man. Like I don't know. Like I said, with Jimenez and Kirk, even if Varsho comes back, like you're gonna get defense that I think another hitter would make me feel a little different about them. So much happens across the course of a season that that's a little tough for me. But I don't know. This team's wanted to put their chips on the table so badly that if they get a chance to, I guess that's scary in the couple year outlook. That what would they be willing to do? But I just signed Santander, man. Max Scherzer's here. We brought in Jimenez. Like,
I like it. Let's push. I'm in. Let's push.
Have a good couple of months. And if they do have a good couple of months, you might find yourself at the DraftKings Sportsbook. Hey, they got an NBA team up there too. DraftKings has all of the action. They are our partners. They're our friends. The DraftKings Sportsbook right now. All new customers who bet just $5 will get $150 in bonus bets instantly when you use code TALKIN. From Monster Slams to Dishing the Rock, cleaning the glass, DraftKings is the home of NBA player props. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. New customers use code TALKIN. Bet just $5 on any wager. Get $150 in bonus bets instantly. That's code TALKIN only at the DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours. What's the over-under, Coach?
Last year, they won 74 games. This year, the over-under is at 77.5. So the same as the Pittsburgh Pirates, who we just did before this.
Right.
I have the Blue Jays like on a different tier,
right,
than the Pittsburgh Pirates.
But it's the division.
I think I went over on the Pittsburgh Pirates. It is a different division. I understand that. I don't think the Pirates are in some weak division. I don't.
I guess
don't do that.
1,000% it's different. So
the Brewers are a good team, the Cubs are a good team, and the Reds are a good team.
Maybe. Like, I don't know.
Don't do the AL East elitist bullshit.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah. It's coming out now.
I think you and I are both like, hey, be in it. They're probably trading at the deadline, blah, blah, blah. It could go the other way. I mean, if this team has two rough patches, all those trade candidates we mentioned, then that under happens easily. So I understand why it's there. They finished below that last year. Let's see. Do I have any other stats I like or dislike on them? Calculating. Okay. Oh, here's some Vladdy.
Yeah, he hit the crap out of the ball last year. Everybody knows that.
Light bulb went off, man.
And he doesn't have the dreads anymore.
Bo Bichette cut his hair. I mean.
Okay. You ready?
I'm ready.
I feel like I'm going to contradict everything I said in this dang show. In 3, 2, 1. Over. Just barely. Yeah. I don't think they make the playoffs this year. I think they maybe win 80 games. I'll put them one game over the Pirates at 80.
Here's what I'll say.
Prove me wrong, please.
Go look at their team overall stats. Trev, maybe the answer is in that bullpen, because if they had the 10th ranked bullpen last year, this is a team that you'd look at and be like, I don't know, 87, 88 wins.
It's a lot of ifs, bro. That's what I'm saying.
True.
It could happen. The bounce back years from the offense have to happen. Those are ifs. The new bullpen coming in and working and figuring it out. Maybe less of an if. There's some track record there, but you know how bullpens work. So
Right.
This one could go either way. Really, I don't feel confident in my over there. But just on paper, expecting Bichette to be better, I think that alone makes me feel good about the over 77.5.
I like it. Blue Jay fans, you guys know your team better than us. Everyone else, let us know what you think was right or wrong. And before that, head to directtv.com. If you're ready to transform your baseball watching experience, go over there, directtv.com, to learn more. We'll see you soon.
Alan Roden.